The lounge at the international airport was quiet and full of soft lights. Rich travelers sat on wide leather chairs, holding coffee cups and talking in low voices. In one corner, a black single dad sat alone with his young daughter. His name was David. He wore simple clothes, clean but old. His shoes showed long days of walking and working. His daughter, Lily, leaned against him, holding a small backpack and a worn toy rabbit. David looked tired, but calm. He watched the planes through the glass wall and waited for their boarding call. He had saved money for months just to take this trip. For him, this flight meant a new chance, even if no one around him could see it. The quiet changed when a group entered the lounge. At the center was a famous female billionaire. She was known for her sharp mind and even sharper tongue. Cameras followed her often, and people whispered her name with respect and fear. She walked like the world belonged to her. Her assistants rushed behind her, carrying bags and tablets. Her eyes landed on David. She looked at his clothes, then at his daughter, and smiled in a cold way. She leaned toward her friends and began speaking in Japanese. Her voice was low, but her tone was cruel. She joked about how someone like him did not belong in a place like this. She laughed about his skin, his job, and how his child would never understand luxury. Her friends laughed softly. They believed no one else could understand them. Japanese felt safe to them, like a secret wall. David heard every word. His hands tightened for a moment, then relaxed. He did not look up. Lily noticed his silence and pulled his sleeve. "Daddy, are we in trouble?" she asked quietly. David smiled gently. "No, sweetheart. We are just waiting," he said. The billionaire kept talking. Her words became sharper. She pointed slightly toward David and made another joke. Some nearby people noticed the laughter but said nothing. No one wanted trouble. No one wanted to stand out. Finally, David slowly lifted his head. He looked straight at the woman. His eyes were calm, not angry. He spoke in clear, perfect Japanese. "Please be careful with your words," he said softly. "Children can hear more than you think." The air froze. The billionaire stopped smiling. Her friends went silent. People around them turned to look. Lily stared up at her father, surprised but proud. The woman's face changed from confidence to shock. She replied in Japanese, asking how he understood her. Her voice was no longer playful. David answered again, just as smoothly. He explained that he had lived in Japan many years ago. He had studied there. He had worked there. He thanked the country for teaching him patience and respect. The billionaire tried to laugh it off, but her laugh sounded weak. She switched to English and called security with a small wave of her hand. She said this man was disturbing her peace. Security guards began walking toward David. David stood up slowly. He picked up Lily's backpack and held her hand. He did not argue. He did not shout. Before the guards reached him, he spoke once more, this time in English. "There is no need for this," he said calmly. Then he took out his phone. The billionaire crossed her arms, sure she had won. People like him always lost, she thought. David pressed a contact and raised the phone to his ear. "Yes," he said quietly. "It's me. I have arrived. Please connect me to Tokyo." The word Tokyo caught the billionaire's attention. Her eyes narrowed. The lounge felt suddenly smaller, tighter, like everyone was holding their breath. David looked down at his daughter and smiled again. "Everything is okay," he whispered. The phone began to ring. And in that moment, no one in the lounge knew that the quiet man they had judged was about to change everything. David stood still as the security guards moved closer. He did not step back. He did not raise his voice. He only held Lily's hand a little tighter, making sure she felt safe. Around them, the lounge felt tense. Conversations stopped. Even the sound of cups touching tables seemed too loud. The billionaire watched him with crossed arms. She believed the call was a trick. Men like him often pretended to know powerful people, she thought. Her confidence slowly returned, and she whispered to her assistant that this would be over in seconds. David's phone stopped ringing. Someone answered. He spoke again in Japanese, his voice calm and respectful. He bowed his head slightly as he spoke, even though the person on the other end could not see him. His words were polite, careful, and clear. The billionaire's smile faded. She understood enough Japanese to catch a few words. Names, titles, respectful phrases. This was not a casual call. This was not how poor men spoke to strangers. One of the security guards slowed his steps. He had heard the tone change. He looked at the billionaire, waiting for a clear order. She waved him forward, but her hand was no longer steady. David listened for a moment, then said, "I understand. Thank you for taking the call." He ended the call and placed the phone back in his pocket. Silence followed. The billionaire laughed loudly, forcing confidence back into her voice. She said David was trying too hard to impress people. She told security to remove him and his child immediately. Her words were sharp, but her eyes were nervous. David finally spoke again. He did not defend himself. He did not explain. He only said one sentence. "Please wait a moment." Those words, spoken with quiet authority, made the guards pause again. Lily looked up at her father. She trusted him without question. She had seen this calm before, on hard days, on nights when they had little food, but still hope. The billionaire took a step forward. She asked David, in English, who he really thought he was. Her voice carried anger now, mixed with fear. People nearby leaned closer, unable to look away. David looked at her, not as an enemy, but as a tired human. He said he was a father first. He said everything else came after that. His simple answer confused her more than any insult could have. Minutes passed. They felt long, heavy. Then a phone rang. It was not David's phone. It was the billionaire's assistant. The assistant looked down at the screen, then froze. The color drained from his face. He leaned close to the billionaire and whispered urgently. Her posture changed. Her shoulders stiffened. Her confident mask cracked. The assistant told her that someone very important from Japan was on the line. Someone who did not wait. Someone who did not call twice. The billionaire swallowed hard. She took the phone with shaking fingers and answered. She spoke in Japanese now, her voice polite, careful, respectful in a way no one had heard before. As she listened, her face turned pale. David stood quietly, holding Lily's hand, saying nothing. He did not smile. He did not enjoy this moment. Power meant little to him now. Peace meant everything. The call ended. The billionaire lowered the phone slowly. Her eyes met David's again, but this time there was no pride in them. Only shock. Only regret. And the understanding that the man she tried to humiliate was far more than he appeared to be. The lounge seemed to breathe again, but the feeling was different now. People no longer saw a poor man and his child. They saw quiet strength. They saw dignity. David looked down at Lily and brushed her hair gently. She smiled, unaware of the power shift around her. To her, her father was always strong, always safe, always enough. The billionaire stood frozen, realizing that money could buy silence, comfort, and control, but it could not buy character. And in that moment, she felt smaller than she ever had before. The truth was unfolding slowly, and no one could stop what was coming next. Very soon, the billionaire stood still for a long second, as if her body refused to move. Around her, the lounge felt different now. People were no longer pretending not to watch. Every eye was drawn to the quiet man and the powerful woman whose confidence had cracked. David felt it too, but he kept his focus on Lily. Security cleared their throats and stepped back slightly. No one gave them new orders. They waited. The billionaire finally spoke. Her voice was softer than before, careful and controlled. She asked David, in Japanese, what he wanted. The question surprised everyone. Just minutes ago, she wanted him gone. Now she wanted answers. David replied calmly, still in Japanese. He said he wanted nothing. He explained that he and his daughter only wanted to travel in peace. He added that respect cost nothing, but its absence could cost everything. Her eyes lowered for a moment. Pride battled fear inside her. She switched to English and asked him directly where he learned to speak like that. She wanted to understand the ground she was standing on. David took a slow breath. He told her that many years ago, before Lily was born, he was invited to Japan on a scholarship. He studied systems, languages, and negotiation. He worked with people who believed silence was stronger than noise. He said Japan taught him how to listen. The billionaire frowned. She knew those programs. Very few outsiders were accepted. Fewer still succeeded. David continued. He said he stayed longer than planned. He worked quietly. He helped solve problems others ignored. He refused attention. When offers became too big, he walked away. Not because he failed, but because life changed. He looked down at Lily and said his wife died young. He became a single father overnight. Power stopped mattering. Titles stopped mattering. Being present mattered. The lounge was silent. Even the billionaire's team listened closely now. David explained that after leaving Japan, he lived simply. He chose small work that allowed him to raise his daughter himself. People judged him every day. He let them. Carrying anger was heavier than carrying truth. The billionaire felt something uncomfortable rise in her chest. Guilt, mixed with curiosity. She asked him why he never corrected people who insulted him. David answered with a gentle honesty. He said most people did not insult him to learn. They insulted him to feel bigger. He refused to give them that gift. Another phone buzzed. This time, it was David's. He looked at the screen, but did not answer immediately. He waited, then excused himself politely, and stepped a few feet away, still holding Lily's hand. He answered the call in Japanese. His posture straightened, not with pride, but with habit. He listened more than he spoke. When he did speak, his words were precise. The billionaire recognized the tone again. This was not friendship. This was respect between equals. David ended the call and returned. He told the billionaire that the chairman had confirmed his arrival and apologized for the inconvenience. He added that a meeting request had been sent to her office as well. Her heart skipped. The chairman never apologized. He never explained. He only commanded. She nodded slowly, trying to keep her composure. The balance of power had fully shifted now. She realized she had insulted a man connected to a world she could not control. David looked at her one last time. He did not ask for an apology. He did not demand justice. He simply said he hoped Lily would grow up in a world where people were judged by actions, not appearances. Lily squeezed his hand and smiled. The billionaire watched them walk back to their seats. For the first time in years, she felt truly exposed. Not because of money or status, but because a quiet man had shown her a mirror she could not ignore. Something inside her had changed, and she did not yet know if it was fear, respect, or the beginning of humility. Around them, whispers grew, cameras lifted, and the airport lounge became a silent courtroom where judgment shifted away from wealth and toward quiet integrity. For everyone watching that day, the atmosphere in the lounge no longer felt luxurious. It felt heavy, like the air before a storm. The billionaire returned to her seat, but she did not relax. Her assistants whispered nervously, checking phones, reading messages that kept coming in from overseas. David sat calmly with Lily, helping her color in a small notebook, as if nothing unusual had happened. Minutes later, an airport manager entered the lounge. His suit was neat, his posture stiff. He looked around quickly, then walked straight toward David. He bowed slightly, not deep enough to draw attention, but enough to show respect. "Sir," he said quietly, "we have been informed of your arrival. Please accept our apologies for any discomfort." The billionaire watched this exchange with disbelief. She had flown through this airport many times. Managers bowed to her, not to men who wore old shoes and held crayons. David nodded politely. "Thank you," he replied. "There is no problem." The manager hesitated, then added that arrangements had been made for a private boarding process if David wished. David declined. He said his daughter enjoyed watching planes with other people. Lily smiled as if to prove his point. The manager bowed again and stepped away. That simple moment struck the billionaire harder than any insult. The world had adjusted itself around David without him asking. She had spent her life forcing doors open. He simply walked through them. Her phone vibrated again. This time, the message was clear. The chairman wanted her in Tokyo within days. The meeting was not optional. The tone was firm. She felt a cold knot form in her stomach. She stood up slowly and walked toward David. Every step felt heavy. People watched closely, sensing something important was about to happen. She stopped in front of him and spoke softly, so only he could hear. She said she misjudged him. The words tasted strange in her mouth. Apologies were rare for her. David looked up calmly. He listened without interrupting. She continued, explaining that she had built her empire by being sharp and ruthless. She believed kindness was weakness. She said she spoke in Japanese because she thought power was safest when hidden. Her voice trembled despite her effort to control it. David replied gently. He said languages were bridges, not weapons. When used to divide, they always failed. He added that children learn more from what adults did than what they said. The billionaire glanced at Lily, who was still coloring. Shame washed over her. She realized Lily had heard none of the insults, but had seen everything else. Calm, respect, strength. She asked David why he stayed so humble when he clearly had influence. Why he lived a life that invited judgment. David answered honestly. He said humility was not a performance. It was freedom. He said when you stop trying to prove yourself, people lose the power to hurt you. Those words settled deep inside her. An announcement echoed through the lounge, calling passengers to prepare for boarding. David gathered their things slowly. Lily packed her crayons carefully, as if this moment mattered. The billionaire stepped aside to let them pass, but before David walked away, she asked one final question. She asked if she would see him again in Tokyo. David paused. He said maybe. He said life often crossed paths when lessons were unfinished. He and Lily walked toward the exit, leaving behind a room full of people who would never forget what they had witnessed. The billionaire returned to her seat, but she did not sit. She stared at the glass wall, where planes moved slowly in the distance. For the first time in her life, success felt empty. She had everything she had chased, yet one quiet man had undone her certainty without raising his voice. Around her, assistants waited for instructions, but none came. She needed time. She needed to think. Somewhere deep inside, a question formed that frightened her more than failure ever had. What if the man she insulted was not just powerful, but right? As David and Lily boarded their flight, Lily looked up and asked if the lady was angry anymore. David smiled and said sometimes people were angry because they were afraid. Lily nodded, accepting the answer easily. The plane doors closed, and far behind them, in the quiet lounge, a billionaire began to understand that true power was not loud, not cruel, and not hidden behind money. It was calm, patient, and strong enough to walk away. The flight lifted smoothly into the sky, and Lily pressed her face to the window, watching the city shrink below. David sat beside her, relaxed, as if the tension of the lounge had never existed. For him, the moment was already past. He believed life moved forward best when lessons were not carried like burdens. Across the ocean, the billionaire sat alone in her private cabin. The silence felt loud. She replayed every word she had spoken, every laugh she had shared at another person's expense. For the first time in years, she could not escape her thoughts with money, meetings, or noise. When she arrived in Tokyo days later, the city welcomed her with polite order and quiet strength. She had always admired Japan for its discipline, but now she saw something deeper. Respect lived in small actions, not loud titles. The meeting with the chairman was brief but intense. He spoke calmly, yet every word carried weight. He told her that David had once been essential to several major projects. He explained that David left by choice, not failure. He said the world lost a great mind the day David chose family over fame. The billionaire listened in silence. Shame burned inside her chest. The chairman ended the meeting with one final sentence. He said power was temporary, but character lasted longer than any empire. He suggested she reflect on what kind of legacy she wanted to leave. That night, she could not sleep. Back home, David returned to his simple routine. He walked Lily to school, cooked modest meals, and worked long hours. Nothing looked different on the outside, but something inside him felt lighter. He had faced judgment without bending, and that mattered. Lily told her teacher about the airport, not with anger, but with curiosity. She said some people spoke mean words because they were scared. The teacher listened carefully and smiled. Weeks passed. One morning, David received a letter. It was written carefully, formally, and with humility. The billionaire asked to meet him, not as a superior, but as a student. She said she wanted to understand what she had forgotten while climbing so high. David thought for a long time before replying. He did not feel proud. He did not feel victorious. He felt responsible. Finally, he agreed, on one condition. Lily would be present. Lessons meant nothing if children could not see them lived. They met in a quiet public garden. No cameras. No assistants. Just benches, trees, and open space. The billionaire arrived simply dressed, her posture unsure. She bowed slightly. It was awkward, but sincere. She apologized fully, without excuses. She admitted she used language as a shield and wealth as armor. She said she forgot how to see people. David listened, then spoke. He said forgiveness was not forgetting. It was choosing to move forward without hate. He told her growth only began when pride ended. Lily played nearby, watching birds. Her laughter broke the tension. The billionaire watched her and felt something shift. She realized success meant nothing if it taught children fear instead of kindness. In that moment, she made a quiet decision. Months later, her company announced new programs supporting single parents, language education, and cultural respect. She did not attach her name loudly. She let the work speak. David never returned to the spotlight. He did not need to. His legacy lived in Lily's confidence, in her kindness, in her calm strength. Sometimes, power changed lives with force. But that day, it changed quietly, through dignity, patience, and one man who refused to become small. So months passed quietly, and life returned to its steady rhythm. David continued waking early, preparing breakfast, and walking Lily to school with calm patience. Neighbors still saw him as an ordinary man, and he preferred it that way. Peace lived in routines, and routines protected what mattered most to him. Lily grew more confident each day. She spoke kindly to classmates and asked thoughtful questions. When others argued, she listened. David noticed this and smiled often, knowing lessons were forming without speeches or force. He understood that children learn truth by watching, not by being told. Far away, the billionaire faced her own quiet transformation. She reduced public appearances and stepped back from constant control. Meetings changed tone. She listened more and spoke less. Some partners resisted, but she did not retreat. For the first time, leadership felt honest instead of exhausting. One afternoon, David received another letter. It was written carefully, formally, and with humility. The billionaire thanked him again and said the programs were expanding globally. She added that she still struggled with pride, but now she recognized it. That awareness, she wrote, was her first real success. David folded the letter and placed it away. He did not reply. Some conversations did not need continuation. Meaning had already been exchanged. Years later, Lily stood on a small stage at her school. She spoke about kindness and respect, using simple words and clear thoughts. Parents listened closely. David watched from the back, his heart full. He knew the moment at the airport had shaped more than one life. After the event, Lily ran to him and asked if she had done well. David knelt and hugged her tightly. He told her she did more than well. She told the truth. That night, David reflected quietly. He understood that power revealed character, but hardship built it. He had lost much in life, yet gained clarity. He had learned that dignity did not need defense, only consistency. Somewhere across the world, the billionaire walked through a garden similar to the one where they had met. She watched children play and felt lighter than she ever had in boardrooms. Wealth still followed her, but it no longer led her. The world never learned David's full story, and that was fine. Not every victory needed an audience. Some were meant only for those who lived them. In time, Lily asked her father why people judged others so quickly. David answered gently that fear made people forget how to look deeper. He told her to always pause before judging, because every person carried a story. The lesson stayed with her. Life moved on, as it always did. Planes landed and departed. Languages were spoken. Power shifted hands. But one truth remained steady, quiet, and unchanging. Respect given freely returned stronger than respect demanded. They never chased recognition, because recognition often chased noise instead of substance. David taught Lily that silence could be brave and patience could be powerful. When she faced unfair moments, he reminded her to breathe, to speak clearly, and to walk away when needed. Strength, he said, was choosing who you became after being tested. On quiet evenings, they shared simple meals and talked about dreams. Lily dreamed of helping people understand each other. David listened and encouraged curiosity. He told her learning languages was good, but learning empathy mattered more. She wrote these thoughts in a small notebook she carried everywhere. The billionaire followed her new path with care. She corrected mistakes publicly and privately. When she failed, she admitted it. People noticed. Slowly, trust returned, different and deeper than before. She learned that humility did not shrink authority, it refined it. Years later, when Lily prepared for college, she chose studies that focused on communication and peace. David supported her choice fully. He knew the world needed more listeners than talkers. Their lives stayed modest, their values strong. And though time passed, the lesson born in a quiet airport lounge continued to ripple outward, unseen yet enduring, shaping choices, softening hearts, and proving that true greatness spoke softly, acted kindly, always quietly.